Yep.
Want to tell us more about your ongoing project?
I'm Roger Rayle. For the last 18 years, I've been watching over this Paul Gellman 1,4-dioxane groundwater contamination. And let's see, I started using Google Earth like shortly after it came out. So when was that? 2005, 2006, something like that. And before that, I had to work with like paper maps and foam board, and it took hours and hours to do things, and you still could get a good representation of what was there. So now everything is in one platform on Google Earth. So you do not have extensions on here. Let's do this one. So, I need to turn off some of your stuff here. I want to turn this off so it's not confusing. Well, that's all my places, Sandy.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about Google Earth is that you get all these layers, and some of them are built in, like down here. So I'm going to turn off 3D buildings. That slows down eventually. But I'm going to turn on roads because that's always good to know, orient people where things are. And borders and labels, I guess I can leave that off. Then I'm going to expand out this mashup that I have. This is kind of like the final view that I'm going to end up with. So let me turn that off and go through it step by step. As I said, there's certain things that you can get from public sites, like these are all, oops. These are all the lakes in Washington County. So those are shape files. So I like to have that for reference. And then this is another layer that's available on the county city website. It shows all the streams in the area. The current issue in this site is there's a well prohibition zone. We can't have any wells because the contamination is entering that area. And to give you an idea of what that has looked like, we're going to look at first what the plume looked like in 1992. So this is a 1,4-dioxane groundwater contamination. And this is what it looks like. So that's at 100 parts per billion, which was like 33 times what the cleanup standard was at that time in 1992. This is what the plume looks like pretty much today at 85 parts per billion, which is the current cleanup standard. They loosened the cleanup standard quite a bit. So after 18, 20 years of cleanup, we went from this to this. This is while the cleanup is happening. And of course, they're not all just 85. Some of them are higher than that. So turn off 1992 there. So these higher concentrations here are like 3,000 parts per billion, 2,000, 1,000. But you really can't appreciate that looking at 2D, because it's still, thousands, 85, how big is that? So what you can do is extrude this up. I'm sorry, not that one, this one. Extrude this up, and you can see what those layers actually look like in 3D. So we take each of those little layers, and we basically pull them up to the proper height. And this is all done just using like this option here, the shapefile. And you can produce, you can give a third dimensional z-axis to show the height. But that even doesn't tell the whole story. Let me just back up here a little. So let's look at the 1992 in 3D. And what they were showing there was that everything in here is 100 parts per billion or more. Well, of course, some of it was a lot more than 100 parts per billion, because after 18, 20 years of cleanup, we have this left to clean up. And the current issue is that this part here seems to be heading toward the river where nobody downstream uses the water, so they've got an agreement to let this go. And 2,800 parts per billion, which is just about the height of this. So pretty much all this is going to go. But the problem is some of this could be heading north or northeast towards Barton Pond right here, where Ann Arbor gets 80–85% of its water. Well, that wouldn't be good, because you can't replace 80–85% of the water. If dioxin gets there, we don't want people drinking dioxin. And with Google Earth, we can rotate this around and look at it from a different angle and turn on and off certain layers and see what might be happening with the bloom. Turn off this one because we don't care about 92 anymore. Let's expand this out and look. We'll turn off the deep bloom. This part here seems to be the deeper bloom that's heading toward the river. We'll just turn off those and just look at the shallower plumes that are heading this way. Well, if you look at this from above, I don't know, to me it kind of looks like it's heading that way. And it's already outside this prohibition zone here. So what the company has proposed in the DEQ, after a couple of years of secret negotiations, approved, is an expanded prohibition zone. So this area here now cannot have wells. And the effect of that is that because anything in these areas can effectively go untreated at 2,800 parts per billion, is that this won't get cleaned up. So where is it heading? The company has a consultant that said that this is going to, it might be heading north, but it's going to turn and go east like this did. But the problem is that this little piece here is not the shallow bloom anymore. This is a deep bloom. So it's more like the other part of this that's heading east, but it's kind of like a little offshoot of it. In fact, if we turn off some of the higher concentrations here that may be heading east, and look at just the layer that's, say, 1 to 2,000 parts per billion, it looks like it bifurcates here. It looks like some of it's going this way, and then some of it, maybe even a larger portion of it, is heading this way. Well, that's what, and these maps, by the way, are the ones the company provides to the DEQ that then gets sent to the repository. We do some magic with them to show them on the map. You won't see this in the DEQ site, you won't see this in the company site. You'll only see this in our SRSW, Cyrus, it's for Safe Water, and Coalition for Action on Remediation of Accident, the CARD site of local government, members of CARD, and community organizations. So, but this, you know, we think this kind of shows the reality of what's happening. But again, this isn't the whole story, because these are just maps that somebody drew that says, well, we think this is where the concentrations are. With Google Earth, we can go better than that. We can actually show where all the wells are, and we can, what I've done is put in about 15,000 data points. Now, I don't do it one at a time. I use a little procedure that's kind of like doing a mail merge. If you get a mail merge from a spreadsheet, using a template, like a letter document. So I have a spreadsheet of the data we get from the company through the DEQ of like 14,000, 15,000 data points over time. And the letter is actually a KML outline, the language that shows the data points and the shapes and things like that. So I just use a mail merge technique to fill out this. So I'm going to show you that. Turn that on. And it's going to take a little while to render here, but these are the different levels. Now, this will be over time, so this time slider shows up. I can play this over time, and I'm going to rotate the view as we do it. So starting in 1986, we had some of our first data. So let's see how fast this computer is here. All right, I'm going to stop it because it's not keeping up. Let me just stop it here in 1999, 2000, say. Stop. I'm going to zoom around and look at this from a different angle. One of the nice things about Google Earth is that you can set a view for each one of these items over here. So if you double click on it, it will take you to that view. If there's description underneath here, it will show up in a bloom. So by double clicking on that, it takes me to this standard view. I'm going to go back and play this again. Watch this over time. These are the actual data points of every single reading, the height vein, the concentration of dioxane, and the time showing up over here. I also have another layer I should have turned on with the year key. It'll show a year box over here that you can see from further away than this little year symbol here. So here we're at the end. So this again is after 20-some years of cleanup. We still have this amount of dioxane. But these are bars of the highest reading for a particular well location at that year. And for the 2010, we still had 53,872 parts per billion at one location. The cleanup standard currently is 85 parts per billion. It used to be 3. So 3 would be like way down here. This yellow here portion is the 85. So if it was really supposed to be cleaned up, all of these bars and all of these shapes here would have to be below the 85. But of course, if it's in the prohibition zone, it could be 2,800. And of course, that's another layer. We can take the prohibition zone and extrude it up. So anything inside this box doesn't have to be cleaned up. And I haven't got all these 3Ds turned on, so we can turn those back on. So that means that they have to clean up this. this little piece up here. The rest of this can be let go. Well, if it's heading toward the river, maybe that's not so bad, but it might go under the river, or it might travel along the river and cabin up more wells. But the real current issue here is this portion here that seems to be heading towards Clark Pond in this prohibition zone. They're not going to be required to clean this up. Yes?
Is there a relationship to topography on top of the ground? I mean, it seems like...
No, the ground topography really doesn't have much to do with it.
Not at all. Okay.
No. This is just the concentration of dioxane at that location. All right, I'm just going to turn these off for a second, so I want to show you one other thing you can do with Google Earth. Scroll down here to the well layer. Wells here. All right, turn off the, and it's best to look at this from above, so I'll double click on that to take us to the standard view. So these are all the sampling locations over time. And you can zoom in and look at any particular one of these. Here's an interesting one here. And this is a real-time graph generated from the data. So this seems to be shooting way up. If we go back and turn on one of the plume maps for current plume map, let's do just a kind of 2D one. 2D. So this is at the edge. It's at the edge of this plume map. We can go back and look at maybe this one. It's going up. We can go back and look at W30E, another island. We can go up here and look at W77. We can go up here and look at the DuPont Circle. Oops, that's the wrong one. 453, 456. 465. Yeah, really high. And kind of near the edge of the plume. In fact, there's one even closer to just beyond the edge that's also troublesome. And that one's about to reach the 85 parts per billion. So where's this coming from? Where's the dioxane at this location coming from? Well, I think it's coming from here. That's the next closest one. In fact, what I've done here is segmented out these wells different ways. So these are well graphs, well tables, but also, and those are name order, I've done it in screen elevation order. So I've looked at different layers of the aquifer, the deep down up to the shallow. So let's look at the well graphs. It's the same data, but now we can expand this out, and we can turn off all but the deeper wells. So where are the deeper wells in this range? So instead of all of these, which they use for their analysis that it's going east, what if they just did an analysis on those that are deeper? Well, these are the only well data points there are. You can see there's not as many wells that are that deep. Which ones do we have? The same ones I was just looking at. W77, 55, 40. This one also a little troubling because it's starting to go up. But notice there's a comment on here. PLS removes the sample. Owner revoked access. So even though that well is there, it's no longer being sampled. So that's the other thing we can do with Google Earth is we can look at, you know, what wells are sampled. We can go back and turn on all of the wells. And included in there is this layer that shows wells that are missing readings or not sampled. You can turn those on and off one at a time. So here are wells that were never read. Here are wells where the readings have stopped, but those readings were non-detect, below 1 part per billion. But here are wells that were stopped when the readings were above non-detect. So these are wells that could still be read conceivably if they're not plugged. A lot of these are residential wells, so they have been plugged and annexed to the city, but there are some of these that maybe should be read still. So the whole point here is that you can take data that's from disparate sources, public data, data that's through the company, data that I've created, data layers that I've added from paper copies. This is really from PDF or a paper copy. And put it all on one platform and get an understanding of reality about a site that you couldn't get by looking at disparate pieces of paper, tables and graphs and things like that. You can have everything in one place, and this is all interactive. We share it online. We have shared it online. So you can go to the srsw.org site and click on a couple of the links. You can get the same kind of Google Earth mashup and play with it yourself, turn on and off different layers. And any one of these can be saved as its own separate KML or KMZ. So you can share just a portion of it if you want to share, or you want to deal with it. Now, one of the things on Google Earth is that you can go up here and you can do File, Save, and you can save the image. So this is really good for showing people when you don't have a computer. Say here, here's an image, screen image of a shot. But the best use of this, and Matt had to leave, but he's part of the CART group, and we meet like monthly. And we also have a technical group that meets every couple, 3 months. And what we do is we often have this up on a projector, just like we are here in a group meeting. When we're talking about where wells should be, we can zoom in on existing wells. We can zoom in on the prohibition zone. We can turn on and off different layers. We can look at it from different points of view. So everybody's kind of working from the same platform. Instead of just working with two-dimensional maps that we used to have to, now we can work with not just three-dimensional, because we have the fourth dimension of time in here. You can get understanding that you couldn't get prior to this. So that's all I'm going to say about this. This is an ongoing issue. It may well affect the average water supply even more than it already has. And tools like this help us get the word out to the public and hopefully through some of the key decision makers. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm trying to visualize the water flowing through the subsurface aquifers.
Oh, yes, you have it. Groundwater flows. We've taken some of the company's own maps. Again, they provided in PDFs or paper, so we have to digitize them. We've been asking for the state to give it to us in KML or shapefile, so we could just plug it right in to Google with a lot of handwork. So far, we haven't had that. So we can look at, for instance, tensiometric surface map from 2002. And if I look at this from the top down, So these are the flow lines. Water would tend to work in perpendicular to these flow lines. So if we go back to where we were here in the Evergreen area, if it gets to this point, which way do you think it's going to flow? See these flow lines here?
Those are like contours?
Those are like contours. But it's the tensiometric surface of the water. So the water will tend to flow perpendicular to those lines. So if I'm at this point of the line, it will tend to flow that way. If I'm at this point of the line, it will tend to flow this way.
Yeah.
If you're over here, yeah, it tends to flow east. So the problem is, if it gets here, where is it going to go? Well, it's going to go here. And that's upstream from Bark Pond. That's even worse because there are people with wells.
That's a steep
And it's a steep gradient.
gradient.
The lines are close together.
Because the 3D maps you're showing us of concentrations.
Yeah, those are concentrations of
Those are
1,4 dioxide.
concentrations, but they can be, I have a hard time looking at them and saying, oh, that's not the plume of actual water. It's
Well, it actually is.
concentrations.
Oh, it's not the layers of the water, no. It's the concentration of the dioxane in the water.
Yeah, right.
But
it's-
that shows that because 1,4-dioxane is 100% miscible. It can fully dissolve in water. It goes wherever water goes.
Right.
So when you see the flow of dioxane, you're seeing the flow of water. It's a great tracer compound, except it's carcinogenic. So when you see the flow of water, when you see the movement over time.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm talking about the vertical variable.
Right.
It could be a trickle of water with that intense
It could be. It could be a very
concentration.
narrow layer,
That's what I'm talking,
or it
yeah.
could be a narrow layer that's moving very fast.
Right. Or
Yeah.
it could be a wider layer.
Wider layer
with
that's
actually
moving
more
slow.
volume, cubic volume in it.
Right.
of-
All of the analysis in this area up here show that water is moving about 1 foot or 1.5 foot a day. But I don't think they've done analysis on all the layers of the aquifer. So it might take longer for it to get here than it does for it to get here, but that's no excuse to let it go.
How did they get these contour lines at the gradient?
This study happened to be done by City of Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
by a consultant.
And they're testing the wells?
Well, these are they're groundwater models using available static water levels data over time. But we have some from the company too. Let me turn off these,
Well, that's
Sure.
really interesting.
turn off the well layers here, because this is starting to get in the way. Turn off those, and I'll leave the plume map up.
Right. Right.
Pressing R, that resets north and south and looks straight down. And then we're going to look at some of the flows that the company has done. So here's some D2E potentiometric lines. And I better do these one at a time. So this is the deeper E aquifer flow from the core. These are the company's own
Uh-huh.
analysis of which way the water's flowing.
Uh-huh.
So they had a couple different ones in these. Well, that seems to be going northeast, which is consistent with this. Where's that end up? Well, again, it ends up in Huron River, upstream of Bark Pond. But they're saying that this is suddenly going to turn and go east before it reaches the edge of the second prohibition zone. I'm going to turn this back off. Turn this back. So they're saying this is, even though it's a deeper plume, this is going to maybe go a little farther north, and then it's going to turn and go straight east. what basis do they have of that? Turn the wells back on. These are the wells they have. There's actually been a couple more added since then, but it's going to be a long time before it reaches these wells. By then, it may be too late. It may be already past here. So,
when people are looking at houses in these areas, are they fully informed about this?
well,
What
in
is
the
the rules?
prohibition zone, people are required to, when they sell a house, they're required to disclose that fact that they're in a prohibition zone. Not everybody does. But the realtor's supposed to do that.
Is there city water here?
There's city water. There are only 3 properties left that were using the water. One of them just recently got contaminated, so they would have been hooked up anyway. But it's a real tragedy for these people because the company only pays for the water hookup.
Only they should what?
The company, Paul Gellman, only pays for the hookup to the water. They don't pay for the running of the line to the house. They don't pay for the sewer hookup, which is many thousands of dollars. And then, of course, the people, this used to be township. There's those 6, in fact, we have that later too. That shows where all the township islands are. Those people that still have wells are really part of the township still. But once they get annexed to the city, they're paying 17 mils city tax instead of 1 mil or 2 mils of township tax.
Yeah.
And they do that forever, of course. They're not getting reimbursed for that. So it's a real raw deal for the people that are in this prohibition zone that are part of the township. And even the ones that are, it was bad enough that, these people earlier had to get hooked up to the city. Now they have to be living with the likelihood that this dioxin isn't going to get cleaned up in their neighborhood like it was originally. This was going to get cleaned up to 85 parts per billion. Now it's going to get cleaned up to 2,800 parts per billion, which it isn't going to get cleaned up then. So, it's not a good. Any other questions? Yeah.
So, regarding this concern that the part of this lagoon is heading north to, what did you say, Barton Pond?
Right.
So we looked at a kind of a static picture of that. Now, couldn't one, let's say, look at the time-lapse view of it, that it has a kind of, as an indication?
Absolutely.
Let's
go ahead and do that. Let's look at the, let's turn on the dioxane again. And we'll look at it over time from this angle.
From a view that kind of illustrates the...
Yeah, so we're going to look at it toward the northeast here. And in fact, I'm going to turn on a couple of layers here that I turned off.
Can you identify Barton Pond?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to do. Way ahead of me. So these are different water features. I'm going to turn the lakes back on, streams, county drains. There's some other layers I won't turn on. And then we've got some names of things. So we have the Honey Creek, we have Grand River, we have Barton Pond. Let's go up here and play this. Let's see what's it set at. Is it slow? Yeah, it's slow. Good. You're going to start to see that black circle here start to shoot up. to inform you of something else. The company has already taken out more dioxane than they said was down there. So this is all after removing more dioxane than they said was down. And now with this latest agreement, most of this is going to be just let go without knowing the environmental fate of all this dioxane. So it's really not a good thing. That's the state of our environmental laws. Anyway, that's the bad news. Let me shrink this down. I want to show you one other thing here that came up earlier. This is a completely different subject. Where's your do you have Firefox or something on here?
Down about over right there.
There we go. I'm going to look up. What I said was what was there.
Yeah.
Because you guys, a lot of you are going to be interested in this because it relates to what you were just talking about. Let's put in Ann Arbor. And here are some of the things. How about a streetcar? So we're going to go to Google Street View. And then we're going to fade this. This is the historic photo. So that's kind of like you were talking about with the railroad, right? And you're doing with the so anyway, all this stuff's out there. And you'd be able to add your own photos.
Tree grew right there.
Well, this tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see, when did that happen? It's not in this picture, right? Or maybe that's at one. Is this really the right angle? I don't see any of the trees, you're the same. It's a sidewalk here, right? No, I don't think they have the sidewalk right. I think this, well, maybe. How come there are no cars in this picture? Yeah, so here's the photo details. Oh, they got a zoomer feature. I don't know about that. Anyway, this is a new app. What was there.com. All new stuff, all cool stuff, new stuff all the time.
What was there?
Yeah, what was there.com. Brand new startup. They actually just presented at A2 New Tech, A2 NEWTECH. The video, I do the videos for that, along with some other ones, and that video is just from this month. Go to a2newtech.org. You can watch their presentation about that. They also presented at Ignite Ann Arbor, which is another event that I videotaped, and that was, I think, they presented in last October. Was it last Ignite? No, that was our last one. I think we just had it Ignite worldwide in April or March. Anyway, if you go to Ignite A2, Ignite Ann Arbor, Ignite A2, you'll see a listing of the different talks. These guys had a presentation at that too. Anyway, I just want to show you that. Any other questions? Anything you want to look at? Should we look up that, see what GMCs are out there for the Continental Railroad?
I don't even know what KMZ is.
That's just another way of saying a Google Earth mashup.
Oh.
Keyhole markup language is KML. DMC is a zipped version of that. So it stores all the images with it. So usually when I search, and that's one of the issues with Google Earth, is trying to find sources, a consolidated source for all this imagery that people are putting out there. And Google does a pretty good job of finding it, but still, it's not like in one place. If they have it stored in their own websites and things. This thing I mentioned earlier before you got here was that Google has just announced Wednesday, a couple days ago, Google Earth Developer,
You said
Builder, Google Earth Builder for enterprises, for companies, for nonprofits, for governments, to make their own like personal storage of all Google Earth, all their stuff that they can put on Google Earth. So they don't have to store it on their own website, they don't have to worry about where it's. Google is going to provide the cloud for all your storage, terabytes of storage. You'll pay for it, but you'll have everything in one place. Just like you're opening up Google Earth and getting all the built-in layers, you open it up and have all your enterprise layers right there. You can share them to whatever extent you want, right? You can share them within departments, within an organization, within the public. So that's going to be really exciting, because that's really part of the whole open data movement, right? Get all this stuff out there, kind of like what CSF is doing with DevInfo. Taking the world's United Nations data and sharing the development data. And Hans Rosling does his TED Talks using this data, showing what could really happen when you open up these databases, especially the geographic databases, what you can do. Is that our timer?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but misspellings is, you know, I don't worry about misspellings anymore because the computer corrects me. Don't you mean this? And, you know, I could be a horrible speller now. And get away with it. This is interesting because this is different than the one I just searched.
Okay, tell you what, I have to take off.
Yeah, I think it's time to go.
Somebody else is coming in the room.
Right.
He said it was full.
Well, thank you,
Thanks,
Sandy.
everyone.
All the way from Kalamazoo.
Absolutely.
We'll
My
see you
pleasure.
again.
Yeah.
We look forward to hearing updates on all of this.
I'm gonna go back and
Maybe
learn some
including
stuff.
others.
Goodness.